The 2nd of May is significant because it's the first anniversary of the death of Osama bin Laden. US President Barack Obama made a surprise visit to Kabul to mark the occasion. And once there, he signed a crucial strategic partnership agreement that commits the US to providing Afghanistan with wide-ranging support until 2024. To discuss these developments and its implications, we have with us well-known security analyst Commodore Uday Bhaskar. Welcome. So the Strategic Partnership Pact has been under discussion for 19 months, but the details are very few. Could you tell us what are the implications of the pact on Afghanistan and the countries in the region?
Well, I would characterize the United States-Afghanistan Strategic Agreement as a very important document. And the very fact that it took them as much as 19 to 20 months to agree on the fine print is perhaps indicative of the degree of detail on which both sides found that they needed to arrive at an agreement. And why I underline the fact that it is important is that because till now there has been this slight sense of ambivalence on the part of the United States about its commitment post 2014, and many people in the region and those who had an interest in Afghanistan were interpreting this to suggest that the United States will cut and run, meaning that it will be a replay of what happened at the end of the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. So to that extent, I think this document provides a certain amount of clarity and commitment.
The pact says that the US military support for Afghanistan will continue after 2014, but it also says that the US does not seek permanent bases in Afghanistan. What is the significance of this?
No, actually, I am very gratified personally as an analyst that this agreement is broad spectrum. Had it spoken only about the security of Afghanistan, meaning that it was only a military security led agreement, there was some kind of anxiety that Afghanistan's real problem after the Americans withdraw is going to be how do you in a way kickstart the economy? How do you make Afghanistan more self-sufficient in terms of generating resources? And there is a huge social and development effort that needs to be done. So all of this, I think, is part of the agreement, and many of the other countries that are supporting this effort, including India, would then be able to find out the niches.
The pact says that the US military support for Afghanistan will continue after 2014, but it also says that the US does not seek permanent bases in Afghanistan. What is the significance of this?
You know, I think this particular clause and the way in which it has been phrased, that the United States does not seek permanent military bases, is to, I think, dilute and deflect the criticism that has been coming, saying that the entire Afghan operation, starting with post 9/11, was really a ploy because the United States wants to, in a way, find a permanent location, the equivalent of a permanent presence in a very geostrategically important part of the world. You have Central Asia, you have the China factor, you have Iran, there are all kinds of permutations, combinations. This, to me, is a diplomatic message that the United States has a specific purpose, which is the stability of Afghanistan, and to ensure that no group, whether it's the Al-Qaeda or its affiliates, use Afghan soil to carry out any kind of activity that would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, its allies, and one hopes its partners like India, because that is the Indian anxiety also. We went through this experience in 1999 when we had the hijacking of the aircraft, and our foreign minister then, Mr. Jaswant Singh, actually had to escort the hostages and do a kind of, shall we say, bargain that was not India's proudest moment. In the same sense, I think the anxiety that if there is a vacuum in Afghanistan in terms of the political arrangements, that the Taliban might come back and that again have a repeat of what happened the last time around. That is the deeper anxiety, and the United States made it clear that whether it's the Al-Qaeda or its affiliates, will try and ensure that they are no longer potent. But there's one question mark here, if I may, which is, as I said, perhaps we have to read the full text in detail. The American attempt today is to say that the Afghans take primary responsibility for the security of Afghanistan. Now, after 2014, while the Americans and their allies play a support role, one presumes in surveillance, intelligence, and other such areas, what if the Afghan security forces cannot ensure security? And we see a resurgence of the wave of terrorism, the Taliban or whoever, and the American forces are themselves attacked. Then what role do they assume under the deteriorating security internal security environment conditions? I think these are the kind of questions that maybe at a political level both sides would have to negotiate.
It's been a year since the US killed Osama bin Laden, but his ideology still remains alive, right? I'm talking in the context of groups like the Al Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula, the Boko Haram in Nigeria. How does this all work?
Well, 1 year after bin Laden, I would say that the Al Qaeda as a group has been considerably weakened. There's no doubt about it. They are now, I would say, consolidating. Their top leadership is on the run. And interestingly, they have just announced a new leader for Pakistan who's
yes.
computer literate. So it gives you an idea where they want to go. But I think the virulence and the ideology, as you rightly pointed out, is still robust. And I think that is the danger. So today, when we take stock about 1 year after bin Laden, the fact that there are some parts of the world where this ideology is still supported, and both the Al Qaeda and its affiliates, including the Taliban, the Lashkar-e-Taiba and various regional groups. I mean, for instance, soon after President Obama left Kabul, you saw the attacks that took place in Kabul, and the Taliban and the Al Qaeda and these groups took responsibility. So I think that is really the deeper anxiety, that unless you are able to quarantine these elements, these groups, these forces, then this uncertainty will always be there. And in many ways, I would say the beheading of the ICRC doctor is case in point, that the Pakistani state and the kind of either direct support or the tacit encouragement it provides to certain terror groups is something that would have to cease. And unless that political decision is not taken, I would say swiftly, any attempt at trying to stabilize Afghanistan would run into a lot of rough weather if the support from Pakistan for these very elements continues. And here we come back to the attack on Kabul on April 15th. Now, my reading is the Afghan security forces did very well in terms of the response. And we know from our experience in Mumbai how difficult it is to deal with the equivalent of an urban attack of this nature. My question is that for any group, Taliban or their support system in Afghanistan, to carry out such an attack, you need very credible intelligence. You need the ability to organize it. You know, this is something that the so-called scattered Al-Qaeda Taliban may not have been able to do unless they are receiving support from some parts of a state entity.
So thanks very much for your insights.
Thank you.